Joining us today is NSU women's soccer coach Chase Wooten. Coach Wooten, you guys had a pretty successful year last year. You had 13 wins, most in school history. You finished fourth in your first year in the MIAA. Just talk a little bit about how you guys expect to improve on those results from last year.
Well, last year's group was pretty tight. It wasn't until the last weekend, as far as conference play goes, that anything really got resolved. And so we had a lot of close games. We won some of the close games. Some of the closer games we also lost. And so in the grand scheme of things, nothing's going to be taken for granted. It's its own independent season. Obviously, we return a ton of players, and we feel really good about that. But at the same time, it's going to take a whole lot of work to get back to achieve what we did last year, even with the experience. But in the grand scheme of things, if we can work on transition a little bit, get some goals, be a little better defensively, just kind of some staple stuff, I think the chemistry part for us is going to really dictate whether we can win close games or not.
As you mentioned, you have a lot of returners. I mean, pretty much every position you have at least one starter back at that position. Just all these positive things coming into the season. What are some of your expectations?
You'd like to think that we gained some gamesmanship and some experience. We've got a gauge of how to play together and things like that. But we've got some pretty talented freshmen that will come in and throw some wrinkles there. I think they'll bring some athleticism and some speed, but then we lose a little bit of where they are in their tenure as far as how to play within our system and things like that. And so hopefully our older ones can kind of help develop our younger ones. It's just such a sprint of a preseason, 3.5 weeks into this and we're playing games. So in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be how well we can marry the returning group that really does have a good foundation of experience. Some of those girls are 3-year starters, and but then what can we do with this freshman class that's really a pretty important ingredient for us to win.
You open up at home, but you only have 2 games at home in the non-conference season, but then you jump right into conference play. Talk a little bit about the MIAA and what you learned last year and how it's going to help you out this year.
I think we learned a ton. As we just get ready to kind of understand what we're looking at, especially when you're talking about away trips, what their complexes are like, what their fields are like, what the overall pedigree of talent and teams that we're playing against. As we get ready for our non-conference part of this, it's just a couple, 4 or 5 games, and all of a sudden we're playing conference games. And so that is different than where we were in 2012. In 2012, almost half of our season was still non-conference. And now, really 3/4 of our season is going to be a conference-level opponent. Mid-September, we're playing for real.
All right, Coach, thanks for joining us today, and best of luck in the season.
Thanks, Cedric.